They've threatened it for decades. War games have simulated it. The entire world is preparing for it. But what would really happen if China invaded Taiwan? Would it be a lightning-fast strike or a drawn-out war that pulls in the US, Japan, and beyond? One wrong move in the Taiwan Strait could spark the largest war of our time, dragging in superpowers and collapsing global markets overnight.
Markets are responding to the inflation risk. They're responding to energy shortages. Really what the market is worried about is inflation and rate. The US and everyone, China, Japan, are all investing in their own semiconductor production capability, which is going to erode Taiwan's comparative advantage over time. And meanwhile, you're actually building up the risk for an eventual conflict.
The question isn't whether it's possible. It's how close we are to the edge. The roots of this conflict stretch back to 1949. After the Chinese Civil War, the defeated nationalist government fled to Taiwan, establishing what they claimed was the true Republic of China. The victorious Communist Party, led by Mao Zedong, ruled the mainland, founding the People's Republic of China. Ever since, Beijing has considered Taiwan a breakaway province, not a separate country.
以和平方式实现祖国统一，最符合包括台湾同胞在内的中华民族整体利益。
Taiwan has evolved into a fully functioning democracy with a population of over 23 million and one of the most advanced economies in Asia. It's the global heart of semiconductor production, producing over 60% of the world's chips and more than 90% of the most advanced ones. Losing Taiwan would cripple the global tech supply chain overnight. So why now? Xi Jinping has made it clear reunification with Taiwan is a core national goal, but diplomatic pressure and economic influence haven't worked. So the question is, will China use force? China's military has spent the last 2 decades preparing. The People's Liberation Army boasts over 2 million active personnel, 3,300 tanks, over 300 naval vessels, including 2 aircraft carriers, and an arsenal of ballistic and hypersonic missiles like the DF-17 designed to target US ships. China also has the world's largest rocket force, capable of saturating the Taiwan Strait in the first hours of conflict. But Taiwan isn't defenseless. With 165,000 active troops, a solid reserve force, and advanced US-supplied systems like the Patriot missile defense, Harpoon anti-ship missiles, and soon F-16V fighters, Taiwan could inflict heavy costs. One possible invasion scenario would begin with a massive missile barrage targeting Taiwan's air bases, radar stations, and political centers, essentially decapitating command and control. At the same time, cyber attacks and electronic warfare would paralyze communications, both civilian and military. China would likely deploy thousands of paratroopers to silently neutralize airfields and key infrastructure deep inside Taiwan. Then comes the hammer, a massive amphibious assault targeting the island's western coast, exploiting its flat terrain for rapid deployment. The operation would be swift, brutal, and designed to overwhelm before the world can react. But here's the catch. An invasion wouldn't just trigger a local war, it would pull in the big players. The United States has committed to Taiwan's defense, though it's ambiguous by design. Still, multiple US presidents have hinted they'd defend Taiwan if attacked.
Are you willing to get involved militarily to defend Taiwan if it comes to that?
Yes.
You are?
That's a commitment we made.
US forces in Japan, Guam, and aircraft carriers in the Pacific would likely respond, and quickly. Japan has already declared that a Chinese attack on Taiwan would threaten its own national security. Australia could also join, and NATO allies might provide logistical or economic support. Now imagine this. The US Pacific Fleet moves into the Philippine Sea. Japan activates its self-defense forces. Cyber attacks hit New York, Tokyo, and Seoul. Global trade routes shut down. Oil prices spike. The Strait of Malacca, which carries 25% of all global trade, becomes a contested zone. This isn't just a battle over Taiwan. It's a global economic and military crisis, and China knows it. That's why Beijing might try a different strategy, a blockade. Instead of a direct invasion, China could surround Taiwan with warships and submarines, cutting it off from imports, exports, and energy supplies. Over 98% of Taiwan's energy is imported. Without it, the country grinds to a halt. A blockade would avoid immediate US intervention and could force Taiwan to negotiate under pressure. But a blockade wouldn't go unanswered. The US might challenge it directly, triggering skirmishes that escalate far beyond anyone's control. One miscalculation, one downed aircraft, one sunk vessel, and the entire Indo-Pacific could ignite in open warfare, dragging allies and rivals into a fight none of them want, but none can avoid. And the stakes are sky high. Taiwan produces chips that power everything from smartphones to missiles. A war would cut that supply chain, hitting Apple, Tesla, and global defense contractors all at once. The global economy could lose $2.5 trillion or more in the first year of conflict. Markets would crash, inflation would spike, millions of jobs could vanish. And then there's the unthinkable nuclear escalation. China has about 500 nuclear warheads, and while it maintains a no first use policy, war always creates uncertainty. The US has over 5,000 nuclear weapons. If either side feels it's losing, or if command structures break down, the conflict could go nuclear. So how likely is all of this? Some analysts believe China will wait until after 2027 when it completes key military modernization goals.
We're seeing more antagonism from Beijing against the current Taiwan president, William Lai. And there's a lot more suspicion that William Lai will do more to push for Taiwan independence. There's been a lot of talk in DC about 2027, about how that's a date for when China will have military capabilities to invade Taiwan. That's definitely still there. That's still on Xi Jinping's mind. There's been no change in terms of Xi instructing his military to have the capabilities. But I think what worries my team also about 2027, it's end of 2027 is also the election for William Lai as he goes into his second term. So China is worried that Lai will be much more provocative in 2027.
Others say the window is closing fast, especially with rising nationalism, domestic pressures in China, and increasing Western support for Taiwan.
China really is singularly focused on this issue. You know, if you look over the past 15 years, China has been methodical about cracking down on Tibet and then Xinjiang, expanding its core interest to South China Sea, which is of course the line of communications into Taiwan, and then cracking down on Hong Kong. So it's very clear that Beijing, over two administrations, not just Xi Jinping, intends to consolidate power over Greater China. And obviously Xi Jinping has made it very clear, first of all, he's not leaving anytime soon, and second of all, he doesn't think that the Taiwan issue, quote unquote, should be passed down to the next generation of leaders. So the implication is that he wants to achieve this reunification within his own time frame. Now, obviously, that could change, but I think it does cause everyone to be rightfully concerned about the risks.
Simulations consistently show that a Chinese invasion of Taiwan would bring catastrophic consequences for all parties involved. The US and Taiwan could repel the invasion, but at enormous cost. Tens of thousands dead, trillions lost, and no guarantee that peace would return. So the question isn't just will China invade, it's can the world survive if it does? Stay alert, because this scenario isn't decades away. It could begin with a single missile, and the world might never be the same again.